Dany'al, the book of the prophet Daniel. In the 3rd year of the reign of Yahuah, king of Yehudah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And Yahuah gave Jehoiakim, king of Yehudah, into his hands, with some of the utensils of the house of Elohim, which he brought to the land of Shinar, to the house of his mighty one. And he brought the utensils into the treasure house of his mighty one. And the king said to Ashpenaz, the chief of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Yasharal, and some of the king's descendants, and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good looking, having insights in all wisdom, having knowledge and understanding knowledge, capable to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the writing and speech of the Cashdites. And the king appointed for them a daily ration of the king's food, and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end thereof they should stand before the king. Now among them were from the sons of Yehudah, Dany'al, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names, for he called Dany'al Belteshazzar, and Hananiah Shadrach, and Mishael Meshach, and Azariah Abednego. But Dany'al laid it upon his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's food, nor with the wine which he drank. So he asked of the chief of the eunuchs not to defile himself. And Elohim granted Dany'al kindness and compassion from the chief of the eunuchs. But the chief of the eunuchs said to Dany'al, I fear my master the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you will make my head guilty before the king. And Dany'al said to the overseer, whom the chief of the eunuchs had put over Dany'al, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please try your servants for 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearances be examined before you, and the appearances of the young men who eat the portion of the king's food, and do with your servants as you see fit. And he listened to them in this matter, and tried them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days their appearances looked better, and fatter in flesh than all the young men, who ate the portion of the king's food. And it came to be that the overseer took away their portion of food, and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 young men, Elohim gave them knowledge, and skill in all learning and wisdom. Dany'al had understanding in all visions and dreams. And at the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king spoke with them, and none among them all were found like Dany'al, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they stood before the king. And in any word of wisdom and understanding, about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians, the astrologers, who were in all his reign. And Dany'al continued until the 1st year of King Cyrus. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his ruach was so troubled that his sleep left him. And the king gave orders to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the practitioners of witchcraft, and the Cashdites to declare to the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them,
I've had a dream, and my ruach is troubled to know the dream.
And the Cashdites spoke to the king in Aramaic.
O king, lives forever. Relate the dream to your servants, and we shall reveal the interpretation.
The king answered and said to the Cashdites,
My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream and its interpretation to me, your limbs shall be taken from you, and your house is made dunghills. But if you reveal the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive gifts and rewards in great esteem from me. So, reveal to me the dream and its interpretation.
They answered again and said,
Let the king relate to his servants the dream, and we shall reveal its interpretation.
The king answered and said,
I know for certain that you will gain time, because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me, till the time has changed. So, relate the dream to me, that I shall know that you shall reveal its interpretation from me.
The Cashapp answered the king and said,
There is no one on earth who is able to reveal the matter of the king, because no king, master, or ruler has ever asked a matter like this of any magician, or astrologer, or Cashapp. And the matter that the king is asking is difficult, and there is no other who is able to reveal it to the king except the mighty ones, whose dwelling is not with flesh.
Because of this, the king was enraged and very wroth, and gave orders to destroy all the wise ones of Babylon. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise ones, and they sought Dany'al and his companions to kill them. Then with counsel and wisdom, Dany'al answered Arioch, the chief of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise ones of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's officer, Why is the decree for the king so urgent? So Arioch made the decision known to Dany'al, and Dany'al went in and asked the king to give him time, and he would show the king the interpretation. Then Dany'al went to his house, and made the decision known to Yahuah, Mishael, and Azrayahu, his companions, to seek compassion from the Yahuah of the Shamayim concerning this secret, so that Dany'al and his companions should not perish with the rest of the wise ones of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Dany'al in a night vision.
Aha!
And Dany'al brought the Yahuah of the Shamayim. Dany'al responded and said, Baruch be the name of Yahuah forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who possess understanding. He reveals deep and secret matters. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O Yahuah of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. So Dany'al went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise ones of Babylon. He went and said to him, Do not destroy the wise ones of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I shall show the interpretation to the king. Then Arioch brought Dany'al in a hurry before the king, and said thus to him,
I have found a man among the sons of the exile of Yehudah, who makes known to the king the interpretation.
The king answered and said to Dany'al, whose name was Belteshazzar,
Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen, and its interpretation?
Dany'al answered before the king and said, The secret which the king is asking, the wise ones, the astrologers, the magicians, and the diviners are unable to show it to the king. But there is an Yahuah in the Shamayim who reveals secrets. And he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what is to be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, on your bed your thoughts came up. What is going to take place after this? And he who reveals secrets has made known to you what shall be. As for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you should know the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, were looking on and saw a great image. This great image and its brightness excellent was standing before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, Its abdomen and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You were looking on until a stone was cut out with our hands, and it smote the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together, and came like chaff from the summer threshing floors. And the wind took them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled all the earth. This is the dream, and its interpretation we declare before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings. For the Yahuah of the Shamayim has given you a reign, power, and strength, and esteem. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, and the birds of the Shamayim, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. And after you rises up another reign lower than yours, and another third reign of bronze that rules over all the earth. And the fourth reign is as strong as iron, because iron crushes and shatters all. So, like iron that breaks in pieces, it crushes and breaks all these. Yet, as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the reign is to be divided. But some of the strength of the iron is to be in it, because you saw the iron mixed with muddy clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the reign is partly strong and partly brittle. And as you saw iron mixed with muddy clay, they are mixing themselves with the seed of men. But they are not clinging to each other, even as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the Yahuah of the Shamayim shall appoint a reign which shall never be destroyed, nor the reign pass on to other people. It crushes and puts to an end all these reigns, and it shall stand forever. Because you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great Yahuah has made known to the king what shall be after this. And the dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, and did obeisance before Dany'al, and gave orders to present to him an offering and incense. The king answered Dany'al and said,
Truly your Yahuah is the Yahuah of Elohim, the master of kings, and the revealer of secrets, since you were able to reveal this secret.
Then the king made Dany'al great, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over all the province of Babylon, and chief of the nobles, over all the wise ones of Babylon. And Dany'al asked of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the work of the province of Babylon, and Dany'al in the gate of the king. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 60 amah, and its width 6 amah. He put it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had put up. Then the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had put up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had put up. Then a herald loudly proclaimed,
To you it is commanded, all peoples, nations, and languages. that as soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments, you shall fall down and do obeisance to the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar had put up. And whoever does not fall down and do obeisance is immediately thrown into the midst of a burning furnace of fire.
So as soon as all the people heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, all kinds of instruments, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and did obeisance to the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar had put up. Thereupon, at that time, certain Cashdaites came forward and accused the Yahudim. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments shall fall down and do obeisance to the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and do obeisance is thrown into the midst of a burning furnace of fire. There are certain Yahudim whom you have appointed over the work of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no heed to you. They do not serve your mighty ones, and they are not doing obeisance to the gold image which you had put up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and wrath, gave orders to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said to them,
"Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my mighty ones? And you do not do obeisance to the gold image which I had put up? Now, if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments, and you fall down and do obeisance to the image which I have made, good. But if you do not do obeisance, you are immediately thrown into the midst of a burning furnace of fire. And who is the mighty one who delivers you from my hands?"
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king,
"You, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. For if so, our Yahuah, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning furnace of fire, and from your hand, O king, he delivers. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your mighty ones, nor do we do obeisance to the gold image which you have put up."
Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with wrath, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He responded and gave orders that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usual to heat it. And he commanded some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the burning furnace of fire. So these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, and their turbans, and their outer garments, and were thrown into the midst of the burning furnace of fire. Thereupon, because the king's order was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning furnace of fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was amazed, and stood up in haste, and spoke, and said to his counselors,
"Did we not throw 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?"
They answered and said to the king,
"Certainly, O king."
He answered and said,
"Look, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the bend of a lure."
Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning furnace of fire. He spoke and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High Yahuah, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire. And the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, seeing these men on whose bodies the fire had no power, and the hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments changed, nor did the smell of fire come on them. Nebuchadnezzar responded and said,
Baruch be the Yahuah of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his messenger and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and changed the king's order, and gave up their bodies, that they should not serve nor do obeisance to any mighty one except their own Yahuah. Therefore, I make a decree that whoever of any people, nation, or language who speaks any wickedness against the Yahuah of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his limbs shall be taken, and his house made a dunghill, because there is no other Yahuah who is able to deliver like this.
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
Nebuchadnezzar, the king, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be increased to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders which the Most High Yahuah has worked for me. How great are his signs, and how mighty his wonders. His reign is an everlasting reign, and his rulership is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream, and it frightened me. And the thoughts of my bed and the visions of my head alarmed me. So I issued a decree to bring in all the wise ones of Babylon before me, to make known to me the interpretation of the dream. So the magicians, the astrologers, the cast dice, and the diviners came in, and I related the dream to them. But its interpretation they did not make known to me. And at last Dany'al, whose name is Belteshazzar, according to the name of my mighty one, came before me. In him is the Ruach of the Kodesh Yahuah. So I related the dream to him, saying, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the Ruach of the Kodesh Yahuah is in you, and no secret is too difficult for you. Explain to me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and its interpretation. Now, the visions of my head on my bed were these. I looked and saw a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height great. The tree became great and strong, and its height reached to the Shamayim, and it was visible to the ends of all the earth. Its leaves were lovely, and its fruit plenty, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it, and the birds of the Shamayim dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. In the visions of my head on my bed, I looked and saw a watcher, even a Kodeshi, coming down from the Shamayim. He cried aloud and said this, Hew down the tree and cut off his branches, strip off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it, and the birds from his branches. But leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the Shamayim, and let his portion be with the beasts on the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's. Let him be given the heart of a beast, and 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the command by the word of the Kodoshim, so that the living know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of men, and gives it to whomever he wants, and appoints over it the lowest of men. This dream have I seen, I, King Nebuchadnezzar, and you, Belteshazzar, reveal its interpretation, since all the wise ones of my kingdom are unable to make known to me the interpretation. But you are able, for the Ruach of the Kodesh Yahuah is in you.
Then Dany'al, whose name was Belteshazzar, was stunned for a short time, and his thoughts alarmed him. The king responded and said,
Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you.
Belteshazzar answered and said, My master, the dream is to those who hate you, and its interpretation to your enemies. The tree you saw, which became great and strong, whose height reached to the Shamayim and was visible to all the earth, whose leaves were lovely, and its fruit plenty, and in it was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and on whose branches the birds of the Shamayim sat. It is you, O king, for you have become great and strong, and your greatness has grown, and has reached to the Shamayim, and your rulership to the end of the earth. And as the king saw a watcher, even in Kodeshi, coming down from the Shamayim, and he said,
Hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze in its tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the Shamayim, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him.
This is their interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my master the king, that you are going to be driven away from men, and your dwelling be with the beasts of the field, and you be given grass to eat like oxen, and you be wetted with the dew of the Shamayim, and 7 times pass over you, till you know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of men, and that he gives it to whomever he wants. And they that gave the command to leave the stump of his roots of the tree, your kingdom remains yours, from the time you come to know that the Shamayim are ruling. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness, and your wickednesses by showing favor to the poor. Your prosperity might be extended. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spoke and said,
Is not this great Babylon, which I myself have built, for the house of the reign, by the might of my power, and for the esteem of my splendor?
The word was still in the king's mouth when a voice fell from the Shamayim.
King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The reign has been taken away from you, and you are driven away from men, and your dwelling is to be with the beasts of the field. You are given grass to eat like oxen, and 7 seasons shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of men, and he gives it to whomever he wants.
In that hour the word was executed on Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and he ate grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the Shamayim, till his hair had grown like eagles, and his nails like birds.
And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to the Shamayim, and my understanding returned to me. And I baraked the Most High, and praised and made him great who lives forever, whose rule is an everlasting rule, and his reign is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are of no account. And he does as he wants with the host of the Shamayim, and among the inhabitants of the earth. And there is none to strike against his hand or say to him,
What have you done?
At the same time, my understanding returned to me, and for the esteem of my reign, my esteem and splendor were returning to me, and my counselors and nobles sought me out, and I was reestablished to my reign, and excellent greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, am praising and exalting and esteeming the king of the Shamayim, for all his works are truth, and his ways right, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble.
Belshazzar the king made a great feast for 1,000 of his great men, and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. While tasting the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring the gold and the silver vessels, which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple which had been in Jerusalem, that the king and his great men, his wives, and his concubines could drink from them. Then they brought the gold vessels that had been taken from the temple of the house of Yahuah, which had been in Jerusalem. And the king and his great men, his wives, and his concubines drank out of them. They drank wine, and praised the mighty ones of gold, and of silver, of bronze, of iron, of wood, and of stone. At that moment the fingers of a man's hand appeared, and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him, so that the joints of his hips were loosened, and his knees knocked against each other. The king called loudly to bring in the astrologers, the Casdites, and the diviners. The king spoke and said to the wise ones of Babylon,
Whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation is robed in purple and has a chain of gold around his neck. It shall be the third ruler in the reign.
So all the king's wise ones came. They were unable to read the writing, or to make known its interpretation to the king. The king Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his great men were puzzled. The queen, because of the words of the king and his great men, came to the banquet hall. And the queen spoke and said,
O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts alarm you, nor let your color change. There is a man in your reign in whom is the Ruach of the Kodesh Yahuah. And in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the mighty ones, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Casdites, and diviners, because in excellent Ruach, knowledge and understanding, interpreting dreams, and explaining riddles, and solving difficult problems, were found in this Dany'al, whom the king named Belshazzar. Now let Dany'al be called, and let him show the interpretation.
So Dany'al was brought in before the king. The king spoke and said to Dany'al, Are you that Dany'al, who is one of the sons of the exile from Yehudah, whom my father the king brought from Yehudah? I have heard of you, that the Ruach of Yahuah is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. And the wise ones, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they were unable to show the interpretation of the word. And I myself have heard of you, that you are able to give interpretations and to solve difficult problems. Now if you are able to read the writing and make known its interpretation to me, you are to be robed in purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the reign. Then Dany'al answered and said before the king, let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I shall read the writing to the king, and make known the interpretation to him. O king, the Most High Yahuah gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a reign and greatness, and esteem and honor. And because of the greatness which he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled in fear before him. Whomever he wanted, he executed, and whomever he wanted, he kept alive, and whomever he wanted, he raised up, and whomever he wanted, he made low. But when his heart was lifted up, and his ruach was so strong as to act proudly, he was put down from his throne of reign, and they took his esteem from him. Then he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was given grass to eat like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the Shamayim, till he knew that the Most High Yahuah is ruler in the kingdom of men, and he appoints over it whomever he wants. And you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your hearts, although you knew all this. And you have lifted yourself up against the master of the Shamayim, and they brought before you the vessels of his house. And you and your great men, your wives, and your concubines, have been drinking wine from them. And you have praised the mighty ones of silver, and of gold, of bronze, of iron, of wood, and of stone, which neither see nor hear nor know, but the Yahuah who holds your breath in his hand, and owns all your ways, you have not made great. Then the part of the hand was sent from him, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed: Mene, Mene, Tekel, a parson. This is the interpretation of each word. Mene, Yahuah has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found lacking. Peres, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Madites and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave orders, and they robed Dany'al in purple and put a chain of gold around his neck, and they proclaimed concerning him that he is the third ruler in the kingdom. And that night Belshazzar, king of the Cashapp, was slain. And Darius the Madite took over the kingdom, being about 62 years old. It pleased Darius to appoint over the kingdom 120 viceroys, to be over all the kingdom, and over them 3 governors, of whom Dany'al was one, so that these viceroys should give account to them, and the king suffered no loss. Then this Dany'al distinguished himself above the governors and viceroys, because an excellent ruach was in him, and the king planned to appoint him over all the kingdom. Then the governors and viceroys sought to find occasion against Dany'al concerning the kingdom, but they were unable to find occasion or corruption, because he was steadfast, and no negligence or corruption was found in him. Then these men said,
We shall not find any occasion against this Dany'al, unless we find it against him concerning the law of his Yahuah.
Then these governors and viceroys tumultuously gathered before the king, and said this to him:
King Darius live forever. All the governors of the kingdom, the nobles and viceroys, the counselors and advisors, had consulted together to establish a royal decree and to make a strong interdict, that whoever petitions any mighty one or man for 30 days except you, O king, is thrown into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the interdict and sign the writing, so that it is not to be changed, according to the law of the Madites and the Persians, which does not pass away.
So King Darius signed the written interdict. And Dany'al, when he knew that the writing was signed, went home, and in his upper room with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times a day, and prayed and gave thanks before his Yahuah, as he had done before. Then these men tumultuously gathered and found Dany'al praying and entreating before his Yahuah. Then they approached the king and spoke concerning the king's interdict.
Have you not signed an interdict that every man who petitions any mighty one or man within 30 days except you, O king, is thrown into the den of lions?
Then the king answered and said, The word is certain, according to the law of the Madites and Persians, which does not pass away. Then they answered and said before the king,
Dany'al, who is one of the sons of the exile from Yahuah, pays no heed to you, O king, nor for the interdict that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day.
Then the king, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased within himself, and laid his heart on Dany'al to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men tumultuously gathered before the king, and said to the king,
Know, O king, that it is the law of the Madites and Persians, that any interdict or decree which the king establishes is not to be changed.
Then the king gave orders, and they brought Dany'al and threw him into the den of lions. But the king spoke and said to Dany'al, Your Yahuah, whom you serve continually, he himself delivers you. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his great men, that the situation concerning Dany'al might not be changed. And the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting, and no entertainment was brought before him, and his sleep fled from him. Then the king rose up very early in the morning and hurried to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he called with a grieved voice to Dany'al. The king spoke and said to Dany'al,
Dany'al, servant of the living Yahuah, has your Yahuah, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?
Then Dany'al said to the king, O king, live forever. My Yahuah has sent his messenger and has shut the lions' mouths, and they did not harm me, because I was found innocent before him. And also before you, O king, I have done no harm. Then the king was very glad and gave orders that Dany'al be taken up out of the den. And Dany'al was taken up out of the den, and no harm was found on him, because he trusted in his Yahuah. And the king gave orders, and they brought those men who had accused Dany'al, and they threw them, their children, and their wives into the den of lions. And the lions overpowered them, and broke all their bones in pieces before they reached the floor of the den. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth.
Peace be increased to you. From before me is made a decree that throughout earth every rule of my kingdom, men are to tremble in fear before the Yahuah of Dany'al, for he is the living Yahuah, and steadfast forever. And his reign is one which is not destroyed, and his rule is unto the end. He delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in the Shamayim and on earth. For he has delivered Dany'al from the power of the lions.
And this Dany'al prospered in the reign of Darius, and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Dany'al had a dream and visions of his head on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, giving a summary of the matters. Dany'al spoke and said, I was looking in my vision by night and saw the 4 winds of the Shamayim stirring up the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I was looking until its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and it was given a man's heart. And see, another beast, a second, like a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And he said this to it,
Arise, devour much flesh.
After this I looked and saw another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and rule was given to it. After this, I looked in the night visions and saw a 4th beast, fearsome and burly, exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the rest with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was thinking about the horns, then saw another horn, a little one, coming up among them. And 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots before it. And see, eyes like the eyes of a man were in this horn, and a mouth speaking greatness. I was looking until thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. His throne was flames of fire, his wheels burned in fire. A stream of fire was flowing and coming forth from his presence. And 1,000,000 served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judge was seated, and the books were opened. I was looking, then, because of the sound of the great words which the horn was speaking, I was looking until the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning fire. And the rest of the beasts had their rule taken away, but a lengthening of life was given to them for a season and a time. I was looking in the night visions, and saw one like the band of Enosh, coming with the clouds of the Shamayim. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And to him was given rulership, and esteem, and a reign, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rule is an everlasting rule which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. As for me, Dany'al, my ruach was pierced within my body, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I drew near to one of those who stood by, and asked him the certainty of all this. And he spoke to me and made known to me the interpretation of the matters.
These great beasts, which are 4 kings which rise up from the earth. Then the Kodoshim of the Most High shall receive the reign, and possess the reign forever, even forever and ever.
Then I desired for certainty concerning the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, very fearsome, with his teeth of iron, and his nails of bronze, which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the rest with his feet. Concerning the 10 horns that were on his head, and of the other that came up, before which 3 fell, this horn which had eyes, and a mouth which spoke greatness, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was looking, and this horn was fighting against the Kodoshim, and was prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and right ruling was given to the Kodoshim of the Most High. And the time came, and the Kodoshim took possession of the reign. This is what he said.
The 4th beast is the 4th reign on earth, which is different from all other reigns, and it devours all the earth, tramples it down and crushes. And the 10 horns are 10 kings from this reign. They shall rise, and another shall rise after them. And it is different from the first ones, and it humbles 3 kings. And it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the Kodoshim of the Most High. And it intends to change appointed times and law. And they are given into its hand for a time, and times, and half a time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his rule, to cut off and to destroy until the end. And the reign, and the rulership, and the greatness of the kingdoms under all the Shamayim shall be given to the people, the Kodoshim of the Most High. His reign is an everlasting reign, and all rulership shall serve and obey him.
This is the end of the matter. As for me, Dany'al, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, and I kept the matter in my heart. In the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar the king, a vision appeared to me, Dany'al, after the one that appeared to me the first time. And I looked in the vision, and it came to be while I was looking, that I was in the castle of Shushan, which is the province of Elam. And I looked in the vision, and I was by the river Yahuah. And I lifted my eyes and looked, and saw a ram standing beside the river, and it had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, and the one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beast could stand before him. And there was no one that can deliver from his hand, while he did as he pleased and became great. And I was observing and saw a male goat came from the west, over the surface of all the earth, without touching the ground. And the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him in the rage of his power. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he became embittered against him, and smote the ram, and broke his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he threw him down to the ground and trampled on him. And there was no one to deliver the ram from his hand. And the male goats became very great. But when he was strong, the large horn was broken, and in place of it 4 conspicuous ones came up toward the 4 winds of the Shamayim. And from one of them came a little horn, which became exceedingly great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the splendid land. And it became great, up to the host of the Shamayim. And they caused some of the hosts and some of the stars to fall to the earth, and trampled them down. It even exalted itself as high as the prince of the host. And it took that which is continual away from him, and threw down the foundation of his temple. And because of transgression, an army was given over to oppose that which is continual, and it threw the truth down to the ground. It acted and prospered. Then I heard a certain Kodeshi speaking, and another Kodeshi said to that certain one who was speaking,
Till when is the vision concerning that which is continual, and the transgression that lays waste, to make both the Kodesh place and the host to be trampled underfoot?
And he said to me,
For 2,300 evening mourning. Then that which is Kodesh shall be made right.
And it came to be, when I, Dany'al, had seen the vision, that I sought understanding, and see, before me stood one having the appearance of a mighty man. And I heard a man's voice between Ulai, who called and said,
Gabriel, make this man understand the vision.
And as he was speaking with me, I fell stunned upon my face to the ground. But he touched me and stood me up straight and said,
Look, I'll make it known to you what shall take place in the latter time of the wrath. For at the appointed time shall be the end. The ram which you saw, having 2 horns, and the kings of Media and Persia. And the male goat is the king of Greece. And the large horn between its eyes is the first king. And it was broken, and 4 stood up in its place, are 4 rulerships arising out of that nation, but not in its power. And in the latter time of their rule, when the transgressors had filled up their measure, a king, fierce of face and skilled at intrigues, shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy incredibly, and shall prosper and thrive, and destroy mighty men, and the Kodesh people. And though his skill he shall make deceit prosper in his hand, and hold himself to be great in his heart, and destroy many who are at ease, and even stand against the prince of princes. Yet without hand he shall be broken. And what was said in the vision of the evenings and the mornings is truthful, and hide the vision, for it is after many days.
And I, Dany'al, was stricken and became sick for days. Then I rose up and went about the king's work, and I was amazed at the vision, but there was no understanding. In the first year of Darius, the son of Artaxerxes, of the seed of the Madites, who was appointed as king over the reign of the Casdites. In the first year of his reign, I, Dany'al, observed from the scriptures the number of the years, according to the word of Yahuah, given to Yirmiyahu the prophet. For the completion of the waste of Jerusalem will be 70 years. So I turned my face towards Yahuah, the Elohim, to seek by prayer and supplications, with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And I prayed to Yahuah my Elohim, and made confession, and said, O Yahuah, great and awesome all, guarding the covenant, and the kindness to those who love him, and to those who guard his commands. We have sinned and done wickedly, and this wickedness and rebelled, to turn aside from your commands and from your right rulings. And we have not listened to your servants, the prophets, who spoke in your name to our kings, our heads, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. O Yahuah, to you is the righteousness, and to us the shame of face, as it is this day, to the men of Yehudah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to all Yasharal, those near and those far off in all the lands to which you have driven them, because of the trespass which they have trespassed against you. O Master, to us is the shame of face, to our kings, to our heads, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against you. To Yahuah, our Elohim, are the compassions and forgivenesses, for we have rebelled against him, and we have not obeyed the voice of Yahuah our Elohim, to walk in his Torah, which he put before us through his servants the prophets. And all Yasharal have transgressed your Torah and turned aside, so as not to obey your voice. So the curse and the oath written in the Torah of Moshe, the servant of Elohim, has been poured out on us. For we have sinned against him, and he has confirmed his words, which he spoke against us and against our rulers who judged us, by bringing upon us great evil. For under all the Shamayim there has not been done like what was done to Jerusalem. As it is written in the Torah of Moshe, all this evil has come upon us, and we have not entreated the face of Yahuah our Elohim, to turn back from our wickednesses, and to study your truth. Hence, Yahuah has watched over the evil, and has brought it upon us. For Yahuah our Lord is righteous in all the works which he has done, but we have not obeyed his voice. And now, O Yahuah our Elohim, who brought your people out of the land of Mitzrayim with a strong hand, and made yourself a name, as it is this day, we have sinned, we have done wickedness. O Yahuah, according to all your righteousness, I pray, let your displeasure and your wrath be turned away from your city Jerusalem, your Kodesh mountain. For because of our sins, and because of the wickednesses of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people have become a reproach to all those around us. And now, our Lord, hear the prayer of your servant and his supplications. And for the sake of Yahuah, cause your face to shine on your temple, which is laid waste. O my Elohim, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our wastes in the city which is called by your name. For we do not present our supplications before you because of our righteous deeds, but because of your great compassions. O Yahuah, hear. O Yahuah, forgive. O Yahuah, listen and act. Do not delay for your own sake, my Elohim, for your city and your people are called by your name. And while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Yasharal, and presenting my supplication before Yahuah my Elohim for the Kodesh mountain of my Lord, while I was still speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, came close to me in swift flight about the time of the evening offering. And he made me understand and talked with me and said,
O Dany'al, I have now come forth to make you wise concerning understanding. At the beginning of your supplications, a word went out, and I have come to make it known, for you are greatly appreciated. So consider the word and understand the vision. 70 weeks are decreed for your people and for your Kodesh city, to put an end to the transgression, and to seal up sins, and to cover wickedness, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up vision and prophet, and to anoint the most Kodesh. Know, then, and understand, from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Mashiach the Prince is 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It shall be built again, with streets and a trench, but in times of affliction. And after the 62 weeks Mashiach shall be cut off, and have not. And the people of a coming prince shall destroy the city in the Kodesh place. And the end of it is with a flood, and wastes are decreed, and fighting until the end. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. And in the middle of the week he shall put an end to slaughtering and meal offering. And on the wing of abominations he shall lay waste, even until the complete end. And that which is decreed is poured out on the one who lays waste.
In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Dany'al, whose name was called Belshazzar. And the word was true, and the conflict great. And he understood the word, and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Dany'al, was mourning 3 weeks of days. I did not eat desirable food, and meat and wine did not come into my mouth, and I did not anoint myself at all, to the completion of 3 weeks of days. And on the 24th day of the first month, while I was by the side of the great river, that is, Hiddekel, then I lifted my eyes and looked, and saw a certain man dressed in linen, whose loins were girded with gold of Uphaz, and his body was like beryl, and his face like the appearance of lightning, and his eyes like torches of fire, and his arms and feet like polished bronze in appearance, and the sound of his words like the sound of a crowd. And I, Dany'al, alone saw the vision, for the men who were with me did not see the vision. But a great trembling fell upon them, and they ran away to hide themselves. So I was left alone when I saw this great vision, and no strength remained in me, for my comeliness was destroyed in me, and I retained no strength. But I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was stunned, lying with my face to the ground. And see, a hand touched me, and placed me trembling on my knees, and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, "Do not fear, Dany'al, for from the first day that you lay your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your Elohim, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. And see, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. And I have come to make you understand what is to befall your people in the latter days. For the vision is yet for days to come." And when he had spoken such words to me, I turned my face toward the ground and kept silent. And see, one who looked like the sons of men touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and spoke and said to him who stood before me, "My master, because of the vision I have been seized with pains, and I have retained no strength. So how was this servant of my master able to speak with you, my master? As for me, no strength remains in me now, nor is any breath left in me." And again, the one who looked like a man touched me and strengthened me. And he said, "Do not fear, O man, greatly appreciated. Shalom be to you. Be strong now, be strong." So when he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, "Let my master speak, for you have strengthened me." And he said, "Do you know why I have come to you? And now I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I have left, see, the prince of Greece shall come. But let me declare to you what is written in the scripture of truth. And there is no one supporting me against these, except Michael, your prince." And in the first year of Darius the Madite, I myself stood up to support and protect him. And now I declare the truth to you. See, 3 more kings are to arise in Persia, and the 4th is to become far richer than them all. And by his power, through his riches, he stirs up all against the rulership of Greece. And a mighty king shall arise, and he shall rule with great authority, and do as he pleases. But when he has arisen, his rule shall be broken up and divided toward the 4 winds of the Shamaim, but not among his descendants, nor according to his authority with which he ruled, because his rule shall be uprooted, even for others besides these. And a king of the south shall become strong, along with one of his princes, who gains power over him and shall rule, his rule being a great rule. And at the end of years they shall join themselves together. And a daughter of the kings of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an alliance. But she shall not retain the strength of her power, nor will he or his power stand. And she shall be given up, with those who brought her, and he who brought her forth, and he who supported her in those times. But from a branch of her roots one shall arise in his place, and he shall come into the defense, and come into a stronghold of the king of the north, and shall act against them, and shall prevail. And also their mighty ones, with their princes, and their precious utensils of silver and gold, he shall seize and bring to Mizraim. And he shall stand more years than the king of the north. Then he shall enter the reign of the king of the south, but shall return to his own land. But his sons shall stir themselves up, and assemble a great army. And he shall certainly come and overflow, and pass through, then return to his stronghold, and be stirred up. Then the king of the south shall be enraged, and go out to fight with him, with the king of the north, who shall raise a large army. But the army shall be given into the hand of his enemy, and he shall capture the army, his heart being exalted. And he shall cause tens of thousands to fall, but not prevail. And the king of the north shall return, and raise an army greater than the former, and certainly come at the end of some years with a great army and much supplies. And in those times many shall rise up against the king of the south, while some violent ones among your people exalt themselves to establish division, but they shall stumble. Then the king of the north shall come in and build a siege mound, and capture a city of strongholds. And the arms of the south shall not stand, nor his choice people, for there is no strength to stand. So his opponent shall do as he pleases, with no one standing against him, and stand in a splendid land with destruction in his hand. And he shall turn his face to enter with the strength of his entire rule, and make an alliance with him. And he shall do so, and give him the daughter of women to corrupt her, but she shall not stand, neither be for him. Then he shall turn his face to the coastlands and capture many. But a ruler shall bring the reproach against them to an end. And with the reproach removed, he shall turn back on them. Then he shall turn his face toward the strongholds of his own land, but shall stumble and fall, and not be found. And in his place one shall stand up who imposes taxes of the honored reign. But within a few days he is destroyed, but not in wrath or in battle. And in his place shall arise a despised one, to whom they shall not give the excellency of the rule, but he shall come in peaceably, and seize the rules by flatteries. And the arms of the flood shall be swept away from before him, and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. And after they joined him, he shall work deceit, and shall come up and become strong with a small nation. He shall enter peaceably, even into the richest places of the province, and do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. Distribute among them plunder and spoil and supplies, and devise his plots against the strongholds, but only for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his heart against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but not stand. For they shall devise plots against him. And those who have been eating his food shall destroy him, and his army be swept away, and many fall down slain. And both these kings' hearts are to do evil, and speak lies to the same table, but not prosper, for the end is still for an appointed time. Then he shall return to his land with much supplies, and his heart be against the Kodesh covenant, and he shall act, and shall return to his land. At the appointed time he shall return and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Kittim shall come against him, and he shall lose heart, and shall return in rage against the Kodesh covenant, and shall act, and shall return and consider those who forsake the Kodesh covenant. And strong ones shall arise from him, and profane the temple, the stronghold, and shall take away that which is continual, and place the abomination that lays waste. And by flatteries he shall profane those who do wickedness against the covenant. But the people who know their Elohim shall be strong and shall act. And those of the people who have insight shall give understanding to many. And they shall stumble by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering for days. And when they stumble, they shall be helped, a little help, but many shall join them by flatteries. And some of those who have insight shall stumble, to refine them, and to cleanse them, and to make them white, until the time of the end, for it is still for an appointed time. And the king shall do as he pleases, and exalt himself, and show himself to be great above every mighty one, and speak incredible matters against all of mighty ones, and shall prosper until the wrath has been accomplished. For what has been decreed shall be done, and have no regard for the mighty ones of his fathers, nor for the desire of women, nor have regard for any mighty one, but exalts himself above them all. But in his place he shall give esteem to a mighty one of strongholds, and to a mighty one which his fathers did not know, he shall give esteem with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. And he shall act against the strongest strongholds with a foreign mighty one, which he shall acknowledge. He shall increase in esteem, and cause them to rule over many, and divide the land for gain. At the time of the end, the king of the south shall push at him, and the king of the north rush against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the lands, and shall overflow and pass over, and shall enter the splendid land, and many shall stumble, but these escape from his hand: Edom and Moab, and the chief of the sons of Ammon. And he shall stretch out his hand against the lands, and the land of Mizraim shall not escape. And he shall rule over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the riches of Mizraim, and Libyans, and Cushites shall be at his steps. Then reports from the east and the north shall disturb him, and he shall go out with great wrath to destroy and put many under the ban. And he shall pitch the tents of his palace between the seas, and the splendid Kodesh mountain, but shall come to his end with none to help him. Now at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who is standing over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of distress, such as never was since there was a nation, until that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth wake up, some to everlasting life, and some to reproaches, everlasting contempt. And those who have insight shall shine like the brightness of the expanse, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Dany'al, hide the words, and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall diligently search, and knowledge shall increase.
Then I, Dany'al, looked and saw two others standing, one on this bank of the river, and the other on that bank. And one said to the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river,
How long until the end of these wonders?
And I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he held up his right hand and his left hand to the Shamayim, and swore by him who lives forever, that it will be for an appointed times, and a half. And when they have been scattering the power of the Kodesh people, then all these shall be completed. And I heard, but I did not understand. So I said, my master, what is the latter end of these? And he said,
Go, Dany'al, for the words are hidden and sealed to the time of the end. Many shall be cleansed and made white and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedness, and none of the wicked shall understand, but those who have insight shall understand. And from the time that which is continual is taken away, and the abomination that lays waste is placed, is 1,290 days. Baruch is he who is waiting earnestly, and comes to the 1,335 days. But you, go your way till the end, and rest, and arise to your lots at the end of the day.